Okay. Okay, let me start over again for the recording. Um, so yeah, welcome everyone. Welcome to the March edition of the Radius Community Call. I'm Reshma. I'm a product manager with the Radius team. Um, so today, we'd be like covering some updates on like what's happening with Radius behind the scenes and what's upcoming. So please utilize the chat to ask any questions you might have related to Radius. Also, if you have any questions along the way, feel free to raise your hand and we'll unmute you. We'll also have a dedicated Q&A at the end. So if you want to hold on to your questions till the end, you can do that as well. So here's the agenda. Would like to share the upcoming community events, updates on roadmap and release. We have two demos lined up today. One on the Flux Controller support that we are building as part of the GitOps integration, and the other is on UDT. So we've made some changes to some of the existing commands and also introduced a new command to create resource types. So we'll be sharing a demo on that. And then there'll be a Q&A at the end. So quick updates on like some of the links that you could use to like get involved with us. So Discord is the channel where you can interact with us. So we are pretty active on Discord. So if you have any questions or if you want to like share any feedback on that on Radius, you could do that via Discord. And then there's also this RAD app Google group that we use to send email announcements. So if you need updates on the release notes or on the community call invites, you can subscribe to that group as well. Next, so the Radius team will be at KubeCon Europe. So if you are attending or if you will be there for KubeCon Europe, let us know in the Discord channel that I've linked here. We would like to have some conversation with the community and follow the channel as well. So we'll like post updates on what we are up to at KubeCon. There's also this presentation that MBCP is doing on Radius. So Millennium BCP is one of the largest bank in Portugal, and they are one of the early adopters of Radius. So they'll be doing a presentation on like how they've been using Radius on their production workloads. So if you're like there at KubeCon, uh, do not miss this session. Yeah, Jonathan, go ahead. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, we're excited about Nuno's presentation, and he's been such a great partner for Radius for many months now. I'll be on stage with Nuno as part of that presentation, which is going to be great. And then I personally will be at KubeCon Europe and would love to meet with anybody one-on-one that's interested. We can chat informally. We can schedule time, dedicated time to step into a meeting room and have a conversation. So it'd just be awesome to take advantage of that time when so many of us are in London to connect. So via Discord, let's work together to find a slot to chat if folks are interested and available. And thanks for raising that, Reshma.
Yeah, definitely. I think there should be a recording like after KubeCon that we should be able to like circulate via our social media forums as well, like via Twitter, or we can like share it in the Discord channel as well for folks who are not attending. But yeah, that's on KubeCon. Um, and then I'm going to pass it over to Will to share some updates on the roadmap.
Hey everyone. So just wanted to pull up our roadmap here and remind everybody to go follow this link to view and follow our roadmap. We have all of our items listed in this GitHub project as GitHub issues. So you can go into each one of those to learn, click into each one of these to learn a little bit more about what that roadmap item is and interact on it. So please go ahead and go upvote items that you think are interesting for you, and also add any comments for any feedback you might have for these particular roadmap items. So our current priorities from last month remain largely the same. and as are our upcoming priorities as well. But I'll just run through some of these real quick. The biggest current priority is Flux integration for GitOps, and you'll see a demo of it from Will here in a little bit. But it's on track to be delivered with the upcoming release. So the next release of Radius, the Flux integration should be available. That means the end-to-end GitOps story with Flux will be implemented. And then what other things in progress include user-defined resource types, so or UDT, as Reshma mentioned earlier. These are customizations and extensibility that Radius will provide for you to be able to bring in your own resource types to deploy customized resources within Radius. The work on this is well underway. It's a very big ticket item, very complex, as you can imagine, and we're making great progress on it. Serverless container platforms is another one that is currently in the design phase, but soon to be going into the developing phase for Radius. We want to bring in a serverless container platform and support an additional compute platform outside of Kubernetes. And the first one we're going to start with is Azure Container Instances. We wanted to go with something that provides just raw compute as our first raw unopinionated compute, sorry, as our first foray into a different compute platform. And so far it's going well. And we have various artifacts, including design docs and feature specifications available for you to look at and review. So you can feel free to click on the link on this page and then go to the roadmap item number 23. And if you click on that into that card, you'll see all the artifacts associated with the project, and you can go ahead and review those and comment on those if you'd like, because it's still in the design phase right now. Postgres for Radius data store. This is a story to be able to configure an external data store for use with Radius. As you may know, right now Radius stores all its state in within the cluster using etcd. So basically the state lives alongside the cluster or within the cluster of the control plane today. But with this change, you can actually configure Radius to leverage an external data store or external to the Radius control plane. And we're starting with PostgreSQL for this one. So you can store your state there, which means that the Radius applications state and resource states can have a independent life cycle from the control plane. And this obviously unlocks a bunch of future functionality and just makes Radius that much more effective in a production style environment. And then last thing I wanted to touch on were some upcoming priorities. So the two biggest things currently on the horizon for us that we are in the process of speccing out and building some feature specs and then going into design soon on are control plane upgrades and application auto scaling. So control plane upgrades will allow will guarantee Radius support for in-place upgrades. So today the Radius upgrade strategy is you have to kind of blow everything up and then reinstantiate Radius with your each time you move to the newest version of Radius. Once control plane upgrades is implemented, you will be able to do in-place upgrades, and the upgrade procedure will have a rollback system in case things go wrong and things like that. So that will be coming shortly. So keep an eye out for any design docs that might show up in the design notes repo within the Radius GitHub organization. And then application auto scaling is the another upcoming priority for us, and that's enabling Radius or enabling the container resource in Radius to enabling you to be able to specify the auto scaling behavior on containers for Radius, and that includes figuring out the configuring the auto scaling strategy, what metrics to auto scale off of, and how the auto scaling works and things like that. So that's currently in the feature specking phase, and also keep an eye out for the design notes on that feature as well. So yeah, that's all I had. Again, please go into this link here, aka.ms/radius-roadmap, to view the full roadmap and be able to interact with all the roadmap items and make your comments, make your upvotes, make your voice heard in which roadmap items appeal to you. Thanks, Rashmi.
Thanks, Will. Thanks for those updates. So on the .44 release, as Will mentioned, we've been working on the GitOps integration for Flux and designing the serverless support, and also implementing the features related to Unity. So on the GitOps side, we are on the final stages of closing out the integration. So we should have the documentation to use the Flux support. And then the feature also like complete in an upcoming release. So on the UDT side, we've introduced some breaking changes to some of the RAD resource commands in this release. So RAD resource commands now require a fully qualified name along with a namespace to identify a resource. So the release notes has some detailed updates on like where to look at and what kind of changes these commands have undergone. So check those out. So this is on the release. So that brings us to the good first issues. So if you want to like get started on contributing to Radius, these are some of the links that you can look at. So the first link covers Radius first issues from across all repos inside Radius. And then the second link is like specifically for the front end experience, the dashboard experience for Radius. So if you want to get started on contributing to Radius, these are like good issues to pick up and work on. And also, if you have any questions around these issues, feel free to like post them in Discord or in the issue itself. The Radius team would be able to help you navigate through those issues. Additionally, if you are like looking to pick up or like contribute to issues outside of these. So these are specifically like simple issues to get started on Radius, but if you are looking for like some small features to get started on, we are also like working on a couple of them with some detailed guidance on like what exactly should be done on those features. So if you're interested, just hit us up in Discord channel. There's a specific there's a separate channel for contributing. So if you are interested in contributing to features outside of this list on Radius, just let us know. We would like to work with you and give you a set of features and give you some guidance around like where to get started and how to get going. So that is on good first issues and features. So next up, I think we'd like to jump on to the demos. So Will Smith here from the Radius team would like to like present a demo on the Flux controller support that he's been working on. Over to you, Will.
All right, thanks. I'll go share my screen here. All right, so starting off with a big question: what is GitOps? What isn't GitOps? So last year, if you were around some of these community calls, you may have seen me demo a progressive stages of demos relating to Radius plus GitOps integration. And this demo today hopefully should tie it all together. So I want to kind of demo what the end-to-end user experience of Radius plus Flux is gonna look like as of the release upcoming in 2 or 3 weeks. So first, I want to do some context setting for those of you that may not be that's familiar with GitOps as other folks on the call. So GitOps is described as many things. In this case, it's an operational framework that takes DevOps best practices used for application development, for example, using Git repos for version control, collaboration, and CI/CD and applies them to infrastructure automation. And so if you know anything about Radius, you know that infrastructure automation and collaboration are pretty much everything we do. It's the most important thing to us. So GitOps conceptually fits very well with what we try to do at Radius, and I'll show you how. So first, I want to start with some specifics about GitOps on Kubernetes, and there's a couple big name projects that work on Kubernetes to enable this GitOps flow. One of which that you probably heard of is Flux, and this is what we started with based on interest from the community. Of course, there's also Argo CD, which we also have plans to integrate with, and if that's interesting to you, please do go on to our roadmap or our issues and upvote these issues. I'm sure they're sitting around. So yeah, so Flux, you can see here in the first page of the documentation, Flux works well with all of these Kubernetes tools that everyone knows and loves, Helm, Istio, Grafana, so on and so forth, right? So what if Flux also works well with Radius? So you could use Flux to set up your repo automation, right? It would be responsible for handling changes to your Git repositories, and Radius could take over the work from there to handle the deployment and configuration of your application's infrastructure. So that's exactly what I'm going to demo today. Spoiler alert. And I'm going to start with this app here that's in our docs. It's a pretty simple app, but I'm going to put the GitOps twist on it. So in this sample right today, there's like a front-end container, a back-end container, and some back-end data store. So today with Radius, what the docs have you do is something like this, right? You need to go in and initialize Radius. You have your Radius initialized. You create your bicep file. You run rad deploy, and so on and so forth, right? So this is something that everyone that's done Radius is pretty familiar with. But I'm going to show that with the new changes to Flux, you can take care of this deployment and redeployment and configuration all within Git automations. So let's do it. So here I have, as mentioned, like an example of this tutorial app. So it has the same structure. It has a it has a resource container, which is just the sample, and it has a backing data store, in this case Redis, not MongoDB. So pretty standard Radius application, very useful for a whole lot of extended use cases. What I also have is a Kubernetes cluster. So on this Kubernetes cluster, which you can imagine that this cluster gets set up somehow by either your infrastructure operator or in a CI/CD way or some sort of code space, anything like that. In my case, I have like a pretty simple, create a Conf cluster, install Flux, install Radius. Pretty simple stuff. And you can imagine that this all gets automated somehow using your existing CI/CD or building new stuff like Flux. You can have built everything into the repos. So anyway, back to our cluster. So what we have is what we expected. Radius, just Flux stuff here, right here with the source controller, and that's basically it. So on the Radius side, we have an environment and we have a recipe, which is just the Redis cache recipe, right? So, these are infrastructure operator concerns, and the infrastructure operator is responsible for basically providing to your application developers an environment that they can work on based on all the best practices and everything in the organization, so that application developers, of course, don't have to worry about these kinds of things. So yeah, so that's what we've got, and I'm going to show that we can actually not rad deploy this. We can instead add it to our Git repo, right? So imagine we have a Git repository sitting in GitHub. We've added and committed all of this stuff, which I've already done. And let's go to that Git repo. So this is just a public Git repository I have sitting around with our app definition that we just saw, along with some bicep parameters, specifying the replicas, and a configuration for radius. I mean, this is just like a couple things like, hey, here's my app, here's my parameters, right? So now let's go back to our cluster and let's actually tell Flux and tell Radius what we want to do. So in this case, we're going to create a git source. This is a common Flux command to create a new I guess, pointer to a Git repository. In this case, exactly the one I just showed on the dev branch, and that's where we were before. We're just, you can organize this however you want. You can make them subfolders. You can make them different branches, different repos, whatever works for you. And so now that we've created this on the cluster, you can see these apps, the Radius apps, start to actually spin up here. So in that bicep file that we declared, we have the demo, container, and then we have this DB, which is a Redis cache, which for the dev configuration is just spinning up a Redis container on the cluster. So works as expected, and we can see that Radius actually also has picked up this configuration from Flux to point to this repo, which contains bicep files, and actually deploys those bicep files. And not only deploys, but also keeps them up to date. But I'll show that in just a second. So let's first go into our RadApp graph and show exactly what we've got going on here. We can see that we have our demo container and we have our Redis cache database. Awesome. So that seemed to work just fine. And so one of the principles of GitOps is not only the ability to, keep something deployed onto your cluster, it's also to handle updates, deletions, and pretty much any sort of changes that you need to see in your application. So that's the benefit of these GitOps technologies. Is the idea is you want to be able to say, whatever's in this Git repository, that's what I want to see on my cluster. And so let me demo that. In this tutorial, we basically got here, right? We got to this app, and then we added a database and the connection to it. Next in the tutorial, there's this backend container. So I'm going to show that using Radius plus Flux, you can change all of these things, commit, and your application gets updated just as if you had deployed it for the first time. So let's copy this, and we can see from the diff that we've just added a connection to the backend and then a new backend container. So let's commit all of this stuff, and we will sit on the cluster here and get pods. We'll sit on the cluster and wait for this to reconcile really quick while I talk about kind of what's going on here. So watch. There we go. All right. So what we want to see is eventually that Flux picks up these changes from our Git source, which we declared above, and reapplies them onto the cluster. of course, Flux doesn't really know anything about bicep or radius out of the box. And so that's where we've come in and built some well, the Flux controller to handle these kinds of situations. So that's basically what this first class support for Flux actually looks like. Is we've tapped into Flux to pick up these notifications and changes, and then deploy them to Radius and keep them reconciled as necessary. So my timing has been impeccable, of course, and we end up with a bunch of changes, which you can see here. This is what we wanted to see, right? We wanted to see a new pod running called backends, and we check the RADF graph. We can see exactly what happened here. We got a new container and our new connection to our demo container. So you can imagine from this point that there's pretty much anything you can do using these two technologies together, right? So this is like a dev environment, right? I mean, pretty simple stuff. You can do all of your application developer duties, so on and so forth, builds your applications, and then commit them to a Git repository. And from there, you can imagine that, you know, an SRE or some sort of DevOps team or however you have it configured in your organization can kind of take it from there. So let me switch over real quick to something more similar to a production application or a production environment. So let's switch my workspace over to, I think I called it AKS. I did. Okay. And then let's do a rad app graph. Okay, so in this AKS cluster is pretty much the same exact app.bicep. And let's go over to prod instead of dev. So pretty much the same app.bicep, except here in the replicas in this branch by default, we've configured 3 replicas. And we've configured the same database, but if you know anything about recipes, you understand that whatever your infrastructure operator or you set on your environment is going to be the recipe that actually gets deployed. And that's what we can see here in our production environment is we have a Microsoft Redis, an Azure Redis cache instead of a containerized Redis cache. And we have, if we switch our Kubernetes context over to this guy, we can see that here we are. We have 3 of those containers scaled. And so you can imagine that if you're an SRE or DevOps or application developer maintaining your app, you can change you can expose these kinds of configurations and change these as much as you want. So imagine we wanted to scale to 5 replicas. All you have to do is commit this to your repo where your production cluster is pointing, and you will get your intended specification. So yeah, that's it for my demo. So thanks everyone for listening in and being along for the ride on the GitOps thing. I know it's an area that a lot of people are really interested in, including myself. So I'm happy to see that there's been a lot of interest here. And so if you have any questions, feature requests, concerns, let me know, or let us know, I guess. We'll all be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Will. Thanks for the demo. Let me bring the slide back here. Okay. So next up, we have a demo on the user-defined types feature. So this feature enables resource extensibility. This has been something that we've been working on for a while. I think you might have seen a demo of the prototype in our previous community call sessions. So this, as I mentioned, this enables platform engineers to like define custom resource types in their internal developer platforms and being able to like deploy those resource types as well using Radius. So as part of the implementation, we've made some changes to the CLI commands, which Nitya will be covering in her demo. Over to you, Nitya.
Thank you, Reshma.
I'll stop sharing. You can share your screen.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, that's good. So like Reshma said, we have been working on UDT and towards the feature, we introduced a few new commands that helps people create their own resource types. For instance, you can create a Postgres resource type in your own namespace. And as a result of introducing these UDTs, there have been some changes to the usual resource commands. So I'll just walk through those changes in this demo. So here we have Postgres manifest. It kind of looks like this. You have the name of the namespace, basically where you want to register your resource type. And you can define your resource type. For instance, this manifest says we are introducing a Postgres database. This is the API version of Radius that's going to support this type. And the schema of the resource type looks something like this. The schema is basically OpenAPI 3 compliant. It would be a subset of it. There would be more about it later in the roadmap. So we can use rad resource type create command to create this resource type. So now if you do a rad resource type list, you would see the new type we created as added. So as a result of this, we now have case where we would want to fully qualify the resource types to be able to make sure that we are accessing the right resource type and the resource corresponding to that resource type. For instance, if we see I have these applications here. And if I want to access, for instance, all the containers in one of the applications, earlier we would just specify rad list resource command and specify the type as containers. But now we would fully qualify it. So it would look something like this. So if you see here, you have to give the namespace as well as the resource name. Rest of the command stays the same. Rest of the functionality also stays the same. So any place where you would want to specify a type going forward in RAD CLI, just make sure to specify the fully qualified name of it, and rest of the functionality should stay the same. And also, I just wanted to mention that we are still in progress with the UDT feature. So we do have a set of enhancements like you see with CLI and some commands that are going to support UDT. But still the feature is not end-to-end implemented. It is in progress. That's pretty much what I wanted to cover. Reshma, did you want to add anything?
No, yeah, I think this is good. So if you like have any questions or if you want to like follow the design of UDT, I think you can look at the design docs in our repo. I'll share the links to it shortly here. So yeah, if you have any questions or like if you want to see any of your scenarios to be implemented, using UDT. So just let us know either in the design notes feature spec itself, or like you can also like chat with us in Discord. So yeah, that brings us to the end. So if there are any questions that you folks want to ask, we can open the floor for Q&A.
And then again, if you want to ask a question, you can either type it in the chat or raise your hand and we can enable your microphone.
Yeah. Okay, going once, twice, thrice. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna stop the recording. So I should